Hey everyone. I hope you are having a good evening. It's Saturday evening. I am really late getting on here live. This is the end of my work day. And so I just wanted to throw out a couple of thoughts here really quick before I wrap up for the evening and head off to do other things. Um, I am reflecting tonight because an episode of the Full Voice podcast that I recorded with Nikki Loney a few months ago. Gosh, I don't even remember when we did it, but it was definitely not in January. It was, I want to say, either late summer, early fall. I don't know, it was a while back. And so the episode, the way she's doing this, the season this year, which I think is fantastic, is she's taking several little chunks of information through each episode instead of like interacting with one person for her episode. She's got two or three in every episode, and I love that because we get to do little snippets of information, and I've been on her podcast a few times already this season, and it's been real fun. But the one that just dropped yesterday, which was Friday, January, what was it, 15th, 16th? What is today? Today's the 16th, so it dropped on Friday, January 15th. We talked a little bit about vocal fry and what it is and what it's not, and kind of some different ways to think about it. Vocal fry has been a bit of the vocal world boogeyman for a while, and I'm just going to say it's a misconception that vocal fry is inherently dangerous, that you should avoid it at all costs, and it's bad. It's bad for your voice. And so I will admit that I have been guilty of doing this sometimes myself, where there are elements of something, say vocal fry, that are not optimal, that can be harmful even at times. And so the whole thing just gets lumped into this dangerous category. I called it the danger zone in the title of this video today. And so as I've learned more about vocal fry over the years, what it is, and when it can be harmful, the more I have realized that it can actually be useful for several things. And so we have to be cautious about lumping vocal fry into just this category where it is dangerous all the time, because it's not. I will say too, if you go back and you listen to that podcast episode, that there's some things in that I said in that there's some language that I probably would have done a little bit differently, because I'm constantly learning too, and so I would probably say a few things differently. Um, I would maybe go into the difference between vocal fry and creaky voice a little bit more, which is something that I honestly have learned more about since I recorded that podcast episode. That's one of the frustrating things about creating content like that, is that once you do it, it's done and it's out there. And so when I learn new things, I would love to be able to go back and like update stuff, but that's usually not the way the internet works. And so just be aware that there's still some things, and even in that episode that I just recorded a few months ago, that I would want to say differently. But anyway, there's that. So vocal fry is something. It is a natural range in the voice when we get down into that part of the voice that we're not using a lot of air. The vocal folds are um, they are so low and so relaxed that you hear that poppy sound. The hertz, or the sound waves, are so slow and so few that we can actually hear the individual contacts of the vocal folds. And it is not dangerous to explore that sound. In fact, it can be super fun. It can be really fun because you have to be relaxed to get that kind of sound to come out very well. You can actually get a really good sense of relaxation through that, and get a sense of a cleaner closure of the vocal folds sometimes. Where it can be harmful, or at least not optimal to the voice, is when you try to use that sound and project it. Because in order to make a louder dynamic or greater amplitude, the vocal folds come into contact with each other at a greater rate of speed. And that's what helps to create our dynamic contrast. And so when they're operating at such a slow rate as far as their vibration is concerned, but coming together pretty hard, that's not a great combination. And so when you're exploring vocal fry, you want it to be at a lower dynamic, with less amplitude, just a really nice and easy exploration. Again, it can be harder on the voice if you try to project that sound. Like if someone is using a lot of fry in their speech or they're trying to speak to a group, their voice is generally going to get more tired and stuff. And that can, over time, that can lead to some more pathology. So you do want to be very cautious about that. But just exploring it, just using it, even as a pedagogical tool, that's not inherently dangerous. We've also, just as a society, we have assigned um, some cultural meaning to vocal fry in speech, that it sounds apathetic, it sounds um, unintelligent. You may hear my dog walking away. He's ready for me to be done with the day too. But we have a tendency to think of people that use a lot of vocal fry in their speech as they don't care, they don't know what they're talking about, stuff like that. And so we also have to be very cautious that we don't equate our cultural ideas with pedagogical truth. Those may or may not be congruous, and so just be aware of that. Be aware that sometimes our cultural biases can influence our pedagogy. We just, as long as we're aware of it, we can examine those ideas truthfully and really come up with whether it's true or not. Um, Vocal fry is used a lot in pop singing and some types of traditional singing, and it can be a stylistic kind of sound that has effect to it that can be really quite nice. And so we don't want to take that out. We want to keep that as a part of the toolbox if we can, so that we can have that kind of that can be kind of that sultry or ballady or even an anguished kind of sound, depending on how you're using it. And so vocal fry is definitely not a dangerous sound inherently in and of itself. It's all in how you use it, all in how you use it. And so that's one thing. Another idea to kind of shake things up a little bit is the idea of screaming and that screamo metal rock that I personally don't teach, but there are other teachers that do teach it. Melissa Cross is the most famous person who teaches this. She's developed a whole pedagogical system around heavy metal, screamo, all that kinds of stuff. Um, and before she came into the mix, most people would probably say that singing in that way is just dangerous. Don't do it. Yet we have examples of people who are doing it and they're making money at it and they're doing it for a long time. And so that can't be the case, that if people are able to do this for their entire careers, that it's inherently dangerous. It just can't mean that. And so we need to examine our thoughts on whether something is dangerous or not, just by the very fact that it exists. And so instead of claiming that something is dangerous, I would suggest that you take a little bit of a different tack on it. Most of the time, when we think that something is dangerous, there's probably aspects of it that we don't quite understand. And so I would encourage you, instead of just dismissing it outright, telling somebody, I don't know enough about this yet. Let me do a little research and I'll get back to you. And then really honestly look into it. Really do some honest research. so that you are looking at the situation or looking at the technique from all kinds of angles, because there's going to be multiple opinions out there, and you want to look at what's happening physiologically, what's happening emotionally, what have other people been teaching about it, what have other people been saying about it, and gathering information. And I can't think of a single thing that we can do with our voices that is immediately dangerous all of the time. Now, there are some things that I would consider more dangerous, like literally just screaming, because you can injure yourself sometimes, but there are ways to do it healthfully. There are ways to do it for instance, if you are an actor and you need to scream for a scene and you got to do it like 8 times a week in a show, we've got to figure out a way to do that healthfully. And we just can't say, okay, you're not going to do it. We've got to be able to do it in a way that makes sense for the scene, makes sense for your anatomy, and allows you to keep doing it. And so the more you can explore, the better. Knowing where to go for that information can sometimes be a little tricky. There are some fantastic forums here on Facebook, or if you're watching this in another platform, some Facebook forums that are really good, that have some supportive teachers that can give you some information. You're also welcome to email me or send me a DM, and if I can point you in the right direction, I would be so happy to do that. And then just, put your question in the search bar and see what happens. There are more and more texts and more videos and courses online that are coming out that can give us more information about alternate types of vocalization that you might have access to that definitely you didn't have access to 15 or 20 years ago. This is actually a super exciting time in vocal pedagogy right now with how much information is readily available out there. So anyway, rather than putting something into the danger zone automatically, get a little more information about it. And if you can figure out how to teach it, how to do it, you might find that what you thought could be dangerous was actually just fine. It's all in how you do it. All right, if you have any questions, please drop some in the comments. Let me know. I'd be happy to help out. Have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you here soon.